Taylor isn't the only new Swift arriving in Australia this year. Meet the new Suzuki Swift. It has a redesigned exterior, a new interior with more technology than ever before, and for the first time, it's a hybrid. Well, sort of. Is this new Swift a love story waiting to happen, or bad blood? Let's find out. All right, enough of the bad Taylor Swift puns. What's new here? This new Swift is not quite all new from the ground up. It's the same platform as its predecessor, but has a new body, new interior, and a whole bunch of new technology as well. There's now only one engine, a 1.2 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine, which replaces the old 1.2 litre 4-cylinder and a 1 litre turbo 3-cylinder engine. It's assisted by mild hybrid technology. Now, Suzuki calls it a full hybrid, but it's not quite a full hybrid. Unlike a Toyota Yaris hybrid or an MG3 hybrid, it can't drive the car on fully electric power at low speeds for any sort of distance. This electric motor is just here to take some of the load off the engine when you're accelerating, and also allow the engine to turn off when you get at the traffic lights, similar to a start-stop system that we've had in petrol cars for a number of years now. It has come with a price rise though. This one here is the top of the range GLX model, but the cheapest automatic now starts from $26,990 drive away. That's about $1,000 more than the most affordable version of the old Swift. And it's worth noting that over the course of the pandemic, prices rose by about 50% at the entry point to the range. So this car is no longer the sub $20,000 bargain buy it once was. In total, there are 3 model grades: the base hybrid, mid-spec hybrid plus, and top of the range hybrid GLX. There is still the option of a manual transmission, only available in the base model hybrid, for $24,490 drive away. Standard features in the base model include 15-inch wheels with hubcaps, LED headlights, a 9-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and wide Android Auto, keyless entry and start, cloth seats, a rear view camera, rear parking sensors, and air conditioning. Features on higher model grades include 16-inch alloys, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, folding mirrors, heated front seats, climate control, a leather steering wheel, and a wireless phone charger. Do you like the look of the new Swift? Let us know in the comments below. In the front of the new Swift, there's a lot here that is carried over or looks very similar to the old model. The steering wheel looks like the old car, as does manual handbrake and a lot of the design of some of the plastic parts in this interior. But the centerpiece is this new 9-inch touchscreen on top of the dash. It has wireless Apple CarPlay, but only wired Android Auto, AM, FM, DAB digital radio, as well as satellite navigation across the model lineup. Now look, it is relatively basic, and it's not the fastest screen we've ever used, but it does the job, and given most of the time you'll be in wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, it does the job okay. Other things to note, you've got analog dials in front of me here with a small digital screen. You do have a digital speedo, but you can only show the digital speedo on its own. You can't see the trip computer and the speedo at the same time. It is a little bit annoying, but of course you have analog dials as well, fuel gauge, temperature gauge, revs, etc. like that. Particularly handy given there is still a manual transmission available in the lineup. Some of the funky design elements of the old Swift have gone. You've no longer got those circular dials for air conditioning as well as circular air vents. They're more of a streamlined, elongated design, but I've got to say I do quite like them. They are pretty easy to hit on the move, because after all, they aren't touch buttons in a touchscreen, as some cars in this class are moving towards. You've got 3 USB ports, a 12-volt socket as well. I will say storage is on the small side. You've got 2 cup holders in front of the shifter, 1 behind the handbrake as well, but they are pretty small. You do have door pockets, but they are on the small side. You've got a glove box, again, not the largest in the world, and it doesn't have any damping on it, so when you open it, it sort of flops down, not the best in that area. Also worth noting, there is no center armrest. You just have to, your arm sort of flops around in between the seats. Now, I'm sure that saves Suzuki a couple of dollars per car, but it would be nice to have that little amenity, something that cars like a Polo or a Skoda Fabia do have in this class at a very similar price point to this, at least at the top of the range Swift and where that is positioned. Now, this is the top of the range GLX, so you get heated front seats, you also get paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, as well as a wireless phone charger. But then again, this is not as flashy inside as those Volkswagen Skoda cars we mentioned, or even a Toyota Yaris. You have no digital instrument display, at least a widescreen unit. Infotainment screen is on the basic side, and all the materials are quite hard and scratchy plastic. There's no really soft elements apart from these armrests on the doors. Could be better in that regard. Then again, this car is cheaper than a lot of its rivals. In terms of space, you've got reach and tilt adjustment in the steering wheel. It's leather trimmed on most models in the range. Seats are manually adjustable. It's only fabric upholstery across the range. Really soft and actually quite comfy, at least on this initial taste we've had here. Let's head to the back. Now, we don't expect limo levels of space in the back of a city car, but I have to say it is not too bad back here. My knees are touching the seat in front. I'm 6'1", and this is where I drive. Some cars have a bit more space in this regard, but again, is not the worst thing in the world. Got some pretty decent toe room under the seats, as well as a little bit of headroom It is pretty similar to the old Swift in terms of passenger space. Not a surprise given this car is very similar underneath. Also like the old Swift and not so good is the lack of amenities back here. You have no rear air vents, but you do have a heater duct system that pumps some hot air from the front to the back. No USB ports, no mat pockets on either front seats, no fold-on armrests. It is a pretty basic space. Even the armrests on the doors are hard plastic. Not the best, but then again, I don't think you're buying a city car to spend a lot of time in the back, though it is all right for short trips or shorter kids or shorter passengers in general. Let's have a quick look at the boot. In the boot, Suzuki claimed 265 litres of cargo space, which is 23 litres more than you got in the old model. Now, it is a pretty decently sized space for this class. You've got a light. Now, it is a pretty deep area. That's because you've got a bit of a low lip here because the floor is quite low. Under said boot floor, you have only a tyre repair kit. There's no spare wheel of any kind. So if you get a puncture and you can't fix it with that can of goo, you are going to be calling a tow truck. There is actually space under the boot floor for a spare wheel, but Suzuki hasn't elected to fit one. Bit of an odd decision, given there is space even for a space saver that wouldn't take up too much extra boot space. All right, let's head on the road. Now this new 3-cylinder engine is less powerful than the old 4-cylinder, but the advantage is you get better fuel consumption. 4 litres per 100 kilometres is what Suzuki claims. On our initial preview drive, we saw in the region of the mid 4 litre per 100 kilometre range, which is pretty good. Though of course, we'll do more thorough testing when we get this car in the drive garage for a full week of driving. Now I will say this engine is definitely not a powerhouse. About 60 kilowatts is not a whole lot, even though this car does weigh less than a tonne. It still does struggle to get up to higher speeds, and you notice it particularly when you're accelerating on a hill or trying to make an overtake. But I think for low speeds around town in the city, it does do the job okay enough. Now this CVT automatic transmission is for the most part pretty smooth. It does have a tendency to groan when you really trying to make an overtake or get some power out of this engine. That is just a characteristic of these gearboxes. Most part it is pretty smooth and does stay out of the way. But sometimes at lower speeds there can be a bit of a lurch or a bit of a shunt that's not the nicest feeling, but it is only occasional and it's not the biggest thing in the world. Now this mild hybrid system is worthy of its name. It is very, very mild. You can't really notice any sort of appreciable benefit in performance. The motor can only give you 2 kilowatts, which really is not a lot in the car world, given the engine itself produces 60, and that is not a lot of power to begin with. Now I will say it does have an auto start stop feature, so when you're at the traffic light, it does turn the engine off to save a bit of fuel. And you can see when you're decelerating down a hill, a little light flashes in the dash to tell you that the battery is recharging. But at times it is hard to tell what that battery actually uses its energy for. As I said, there's no real boost in performance that you can tell from this electric motor, and any other benefits are in the background and quite hard for the driver to notice. It's nice to have for sure, and that auto start stop feature does help, but it's not the biggest thing, and I wouldn't really call this a true hybrid like a Toyota Yaris or an MG3. Other things to note, the ride is pretty good. It is on the firmer side for this class, and not everyone might like how it has a bit of a sporty feel over bumps. Worth taking for a test drive before you sign on the dotted line there. The brakes are quite confident, pedal is really easy to modulate and quite linear, no complaints there. The steering is quite light at city speeds, but also quite direct as well. This is a really enjoyable car to drive. Now we haven't done a lot of driving in the country or on nice winding roads that we have this car for a full week of testing at home. The initial impressions are pretty good. Remember, this does weigh less than a tonne, so it does have physics on its side. It feels light on its feet, quite agile. The steering is quite direct, just off the center point, and overall, it's a sweet little car to drive. New safety features for the latest Swift include lane keep assist and lane centering assist, while the autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, and traffic sign recognition systems, standard across the range, have been improved compared to the old model. There are 6 airbags, while more expensive models add blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. So there you have it, the new Suzuki Swift. I think evolution, not revolution, is probably the best way to sum up this car. It's had a welcome boost in technology, in safety, in some of the features it offers, but it hasn't lost any of that simplicity or charm or fun to drive nature that we know and love from the old Swift. It's not perfect. A Volkswagen Polo or a Skoda Fabia does have this car beat on technology and outright features, and while Suzuki calls it a hybrid, I think that does it a bit of a disservice. The mild hybrid system doesn't add much in the way of fuel economy, though to be fair, it wasn't really a thirsty car to begin with, so I don't think it even really needed that tech. What do you think of the new Suzuki Swift? Let us know in the comments below. Now if you enjoyed this video, please click like to stay up to date with all of our latest videos, hit subscribe and that little notification bell, and of course to read the full review on this car and see how much it costs, what you get for the money, click the link in the description below to head to Drive.com.au.